30 pieces of silver, a proverbial expression for acts of deceit, duplicity, and treachery. 30 pieces of silver, a metaphor for betrayal. Yet some people, despite what the consequences might be, would in fact jump at the opportunity to grab an easy, filthy lucre, regardless of who it might hurt, including themselves or their people. Some people would sell their souls, even their own mothers, for 30 pieces of silver. What would some do to gain favor with the enemy? Let's explore. I've been intrigued as to where certain phrases came from and have researched them to satisfy my curiosity. For example, the phrase, "he bought the farm," was supposedly an old military phrase. When a soldier died fighting for his country, the government gave his widow enough money to buy a farm, thus the saying, "he bought the farm." There's another phrase which piqued my interest of late. That phrase pertains to 30 pieces of silver and what it means. The phrase 30 pieces of silver wasn't a lot of money and is only mentioned in the Bible 3 times. In today's money, 30 pieces of silver would only amount to about $265. This was the amount paid to a slave owner when the slave was gored by an ox and died. The owner of the ox would pay the owner of the slave 30 pieces of silver as compensation for his or her death. It was also mentioned when Judas Iscariot took 30 pieces of silver from the government to betray Jesus. Enter Michael Langley, a U.S. Marine Corps general who is the commander of the AFRICOM, the United States military's Africa Command. General Langley lied when he told the Senate Armed Services Committee that Captain Ibrahim Traore, president of Burkina Faso, was using his country's gold reserves to, and I quote, "protect the junta regime." Unquote. Shortly thereafter, the 19th assassination attempt on Captain Traore's life occurred. After the last assassination attempt failed, General Langley was seen in Côte d'Ivoire rubbing elbows with its president. Côte d'Ivoire is another West African country where it is said the Burkina Faso coup plotters are stationed. You can put 2 + 2 together and get 4. It never ceases to amaze me that whenever a foreign leader wants to do right by his people and all outside mechanisms fail to stop his progress, Western governments like the US, England, and France almost always seem to be behind it. And one of the methods they use to try and get rid of that leader who gets in their way of stealing their resources is to get a person to be their face and who looks like their opposition, pay them their 30 pieces of silver, and put them in the limelight so that the obvious isn't noticed. In this case, it's General Michael Langley, 30 pieces of silver working at its best. They figure it's a tried and true tested method, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what they've failed to realize is that black people all around the world saw them do this to all of our leaders, including, but not limited to, Amilcar Cabral, Anwar Sadat, Busa, Eduardo Mondlane, Felix Roland Moumier, Fred Hampton, Henry and Harriet Moore, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Maurice Bishop, Medgar Evers, Muammar Gaddafi, Nat Turner, Patrice Lumumba, Pierre Mulele, Ruben Niobe, Sylvanus Olympio, Thomas Sankara, and countless others. President Traore has instructed his country to take back control of their natural resources, such as the gold in their ground, and use its proceeds to fund projects to help his people. This is what the West doesn't like, and it's the same colonial power play used against our people from the beginning, to this day. So when you see someone in blackface doing the bidding of those who mean us no good, just remember the words of one of our leaders, El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X.
I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that in order to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Capitoli and Burkina Faso, as they know that both, whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
To understand this, you have to go back to what young brother here referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro back during slavery. There was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save their master's house quicker than the master would. The house Negro, if the master said, we got a good house here, the house Negro said, yeah, we got a good house here. Whenever the master said we, he said we. That's how you can tell a house Negro. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, what's the matter, boss? We sick. We sick. He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, let's run away, let's escape, let's separate, that house Negro would look at you and say, man, you crazy. What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this? That was that house Negro. In those days he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today because we still got some house niggers running around here.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.